Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparuta de sangamatassa tawara ye sodavanta bamunchantu satang. So this evening, the observance night, the phase of the moon, the new moon, this reflection on change, on time, and I notice now, every day I think another day completed and nearer to death. And that might sound rather morbid to some of you, because death is considered a rather morbid perception. But it's also true in its way. And one more day passes, one more day closer to the death day. Because the death is what we all know we have to experience. And of course in the future, that's what it is. It's in the future. We think, the future, I'm going to die. And so this sense of I am going to die, and starting from that point, because right now, sitting here in this temple, at this moment, there's this physical body that we strongly identify with, there's I, me and mine, that is breathing and feeling, conscious. And then in the future, because we're so convinced that time is our reality, that we know that another day is past, and that I will die sometime in the future, and whenever that might be. So the Buddha was pointing to always the paccuppanna reality, the present moment of awareness, that within the containment of the human form that we have, we at least can realize or recognize the timeless reality, timelessness, akalika Dhamma. Because the time-bound conditions are what most people consider their reality. That I was born, and I'm this age, this body, and that in the future I will die. And of course the whole society, everywhere you go, whether it's in Europe or Asia or wherever, this is the general conventional attitude and the real world for human beings. And then the Buddha comes along with his pointing to the timeless, to timelessness, selfless, the unborn, unconditioned, uncreated, unformed, nibbana, anatta. And that's why I encourage you all to just to begin to, or really examine, investigate this sense of I am this person, this body that will die in the future. Because that is oftentimes the way we live our lives. I am this person that was born, have this nationality, this gender, this age, all these habits, these astrological signs. We were so fascinated with ourselves and with what sign we were born under, and what the future will be. We go to fortune tellers, so forth, to try to find out what our future will be. Hopefully it'll be all about good health, happiness, success, prosperity. And even some people are so ignorant they hope for immortality, some kind of physical immortality. But in terms of Dhamma, that's not the way it is. At this moment, this body it's like this at this moment. It's feeling. It was born, and it's now this age, then it will die. But my relationship to the body then is, instead of identity, habitual, unquestioned identity and attachment to it, is seen it in terms of the reality of now. So this mindfulness is the gate to the deathless, the door or the entrance to timelessness. Now when you talk about the timeless or the deathless, then we can't imagine it. Try to imagine timelessness, or the deathless, or nibbana. What we do with the word nibbana is usually think it's some kind of more ecstatic, more wonderful kind of happiness than the ordinary happiness. So we tend to put nibbana in some kind of superlative position, as some kind of attainment or achievement. It's the highest happiness. Or is it not that at all? It's not about being happy, but it's being free from delusion. And that can, of course, that's the reality of now. Reality is now. It's not about something in the future. It's not about the past. And the only way we can recognize that, the recognition or realizing, is this gate to the deathless, the mindfulness. So then in Buddha Dhamma, the Buddha is pointing to the subject-object relationship, because each one of us is experiencing consciousness from this seemingly subjective position, the human form that we identify with, or that we're experiencing in the present moment. So we're experiencing consciousness in a form. So contemplate that consciousness has no form, but we're experiencing consciousness within the limitations of a form, the human body, for example. And then when we're born, then we tend to get conditioned into identifying with our bodies, what our mother says, father, religion, cultural identities, class identities, racial, and all that. We become boys and girls, we become English or Welsh or American, we become lovable or unlovable according to the conditioning that we acquire after we're born. But Buddha is pointing, before birth, before you were born, before the body was born, consciousness had no boundary. Then when we're born, then we're experiencing consciousness from this point here. So this is just a reflection of the value and the importance of mindfulness, sati sampajanya, sati panya. Why this is the essence, the whole point of the Buddhist teaching, is to recognize, to awaken to this universal consciousness that's not personal, not no longer do we see it in terms of me and mine, of language, of identity with the body. So it's this, when we're mindful, at that moment, in this present moment, through non-attachment, then we recognize the real. We awaken to reality. And so this is the liberation from delusion. Now, talking like this, of course, it sounds all very simple, and it is so simple that we can't understand it, because the thinking mind is a complication. Thinking is dualistic function. So this is where you can't think yourself into nibbana or into enlightenment. Now you can create delusions about yourself as being enlightened or unenlightened, or realizing nibbana or not realizing nibbana. And so we create maybe illusions of being unenlightened or being enlightened. But then getting to behind the words themselves, these are words, enlightenment or not enlightened, awakened or not awakened, being an arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, or a patuchana, a totally ignorant human being. This is language. And then the sakkaya ditthi, or the ego, the sense of a separate self, clings to these conceptions. So note, this sense of a self is a delusion. The self, in terms of sakkaya ditthi, atta in Pali, call it ego, sakkaya ditthi, personality, view. What this is this identity out of ignorance, out of conditioning. It's conventional. There's nothing, I'm not saying we shouldn't have an ego, but when we operate only from the ego, then we're bound to that limitation. Once you're bound to a limitation, that's the time condition, so that's about birth and death. So then we have fear, because from the ego level we're going to die. I'm going to die. On a conventional level, that's the truth. I say, I'm going to die someday. People ask me, what do you want us to do when you die? Be cremated or buried? Put in a mausoleum? Mummified? I keep saying, if I die here in England, I'd like to be put out in the field, and I want you to get vultures from India and scatter my bones and my flesh out in that field and let the vultures eat me. I just love to see the reactions of the local people, because I'll be dead at the time. You can imagine the horror of the English mindset, this disgusting, perverted custom of Buddhism. Because human corpses, rotting flesh, eaten by vultures, or even some people find being consumed by worms is disgusting. We don't like to see ourselves, as me, Ajahn Sumedho, with worms crawling through my body and kind of putrefaction taking place, and all this kind of ugly, stinking mass of flesh. On the ego level, that is not how I want to be, how I want to relate to the world. That the ego is based on trying to be attractive or charming or acceptable, or not be a nuisance or be disgusting or smell bad or be foul in any way. So the ego is always under threat, and there's a lot to fear from the ego position. How many of you struggle a lot with fear, worrying what others think of you, worrying about the future, fear of growing old and being rejected or thrown out or lost? Fear of death, because if you've never investigated Dhamma, if you've never awakened and looked into reality at all, then the future is the unknown, death is the unknown. What happens to you when you die? Where do Buddhists go when they die? And people come, say, well, I've done a lot of merit making, given a lot of dana. Maybe I hope I'll get the payoff when I die. I'll get born into a nicer realm, maybe a deva realm or some pleasant place. So this is still the ego, isn't it? The sakkaya ditthi. If I'm this body, when I die, if I'm in Thailand, for example, in Buddhist countries, it's very much the attitude of doing a lot of merit making in order to accumulate good virtues for the next life. Now the Buddha is actually teaching liberation here and now. He wasn't, even though the reincarnation, rebirth, and all these are very much, these concepts are much associated with Buddhism as such, part of the cultural and conventional way of thinking. Is it real? Is that reincarnation or rebirth? What is that? And so we bring it into the present moment for investigation. And this is where I recommend contemplating the paticca samuppada, the dependent origination, because that I found very helpful conventional teaching in Theravada Buddhism for beginning to understand just what rebirth is as we're experiencing it here and now. Not from the ego level of I'm being reborn each moment. It's not trying to just take another kind of so-called Buddhist attitude, but it's recognizing that this becoming is going on all the time, becoming reborn, that the ego changes according to conditions. How you feel, how you see yourself, it changes according to whether it's sunny or rainy, hot or cold, whether you're feeling healthy or sick, whether people are treating you well or they're treating you badly. And that it's all, whether you're tired or you're rested, how old you are, the kind of respect you get from others or disrespect. Your personality changes according to who you're with your parents or with your teachers, with your children, with your juniors or seniors or equals, with your best friends, or with having to be with people you don't like and don't respect. Your personality changes, adapts itself accordingly to these various conditions that are beyond our control. But that awareness of the personality, that's the constant reality of now that we begin to recognize, and that's what the whole emphasis of Buddhist teaching is, to awaken and recognize the Dhamma, know reality, awaken to the real. Now we say, what is the real? And then, of course, you want a description. It's like, I remember when, in psychology and that, you have this word consciousness, and what is consciousness? And I remember in early years of Buddhist meditation, wanting to find out what exactly, the proper English definition of vijnana or citta, wanting to find a definition in a dictionary or in modern psychology. What is consciousness? And I remember one time wanting to go to the library and look up in the Pali dictionary, vijnana, in order to get the definition, the Pali definition of consciousness. And suddenly it dawned on me that what am I doing? This is consciousness now. I don't have to go try to find out what somebody says about it. You just recognize it. So awareness, here and now, awareness is the awakened recognition of consciousness. And then we're experiencing consciousness from this point, from this human form, the limitation of this form. So I'm not like God, where I'm consciousness from the ultimate position of knowing everything about everything and seeing everything all at one moment in some kind of universal position. But it's a humbling position. Being a human being is very humbling, because it's a lowly position. And then just this body sitting here. This ordinary kind of human form, consciousness, so awaken, say the gate to the deathless is open, awareness here and now, and so it's as simple as that. Suddenly it's awakened recognition. It's conscious. It's not, you don't go unconscious or in a trance. It's energetic, it's real. And then I can create myself. I'm Ajahn Sumedho and I'm this kind of thing. Then that is then the creations, the forms, the conditions, the images come out from that. So the liberation from the ego is not like not having an ego anymore. It's not an attack so that you, on the ego or a sense of self or conventional reality, but having the perspective on it, to see the ego or sakkayaditthi for what it is, and no longer be limited, blinded, enslaved to these conditions that are this blind attachment to the conditioned realm is suffering. First noble truth, dukkha. Now this kind of practice takes a constant reminder, because the ego is very tricky. When you're a monk or a nun, it's the ego, no matter how virtuous and dedicated and spiritual you might see yourself to be, and how sincere, all these virtuous conditions, sincerity and views in no matter good views, right views, supreme views, if we haven't awakened to the condition, then we're still limited even by the ideals we hold or the views that, no matter how grand or magnanimous those views are, or how mean or selfish, we're still, the conditioned realm is impermanent, and therefore it's subject to this incessant change. It's unstable and will always lead to some kind of dissatisfaction, unhappiness, discontentment, misery, despair. So this awakened Buddho. So that's, I teach this Buddho mantra all the time, because I found that just a very skillful means to remind myself. The knowing it, Buddho then is Buddha's name, but I'm not looking for Buddha as some creation or some perception I have of Buddha. It's just a reminder of wake up here and now. Be this Buddho, be this refuge in Buddha. Not me, Ajahn Sumedho, trying to become Buddha. That's another delusion. That's quite complicated, isn't it? Me, I'm trying to become a Buddha as a person, or Buddho as a skillful means, an upaya, a conventional form, a word, not to grasp out of ignorance, but to awaken with. It means awakened consciousness. And it's as simple as this, just this awareness here and now. Now, over the years, having been a monk for so many years, this has dedicated my whole life to this practice. It's not a complicated practice. But it does take the determination, because it's so easy to forget it. The world impinges on us, and it's so worldly conditions are very powerful. One's own emotional habits, tendencies, views and opinions, pressures from the society, the ideals, the fears, all this, we got to live with. It impinges on us. It attacks us at various times. You live in a society that's very, quite aggressive. Very intimidating. You're living modern life here, and we always feel so intimidated by it. It's how things should be, and the kind of way the critical mind can be so clever, and really see how wrong things are, or how bad something is, or corrupt, or mean, either oneself or somebody else, or governments, countries, whatever. So that this mind is, it brings up strong sense of righteous indignation, anger, rage, resentment, blaming, seeking revenge for the wrongs, wanting to punish the wicked, thinking the good should always be rewarded. Why do wicked people get titles in this country? Why do all these bankers that have deluded the population become Sir this and it's not fair, is it? No, the good people of this country, the people that are pure-hearted, moral, and trustworthy, should get these accolades, these titles. Even in Buddhism, Buddhism, you get titles. And some of these monks that get titles are rascals. That's how you play the game, your political abilities to influence and promote yourself within a conventional form. So you think like being a Tanjau Kun or Dalai Lama or something like this is an attainment, is somehow an achievement. Being a Supreme Patriarch, Sangha, a Mahanayaka, all these are kind of superlative terms for attainment within Buddhist monasticism. And they usually mean very, very wonderful things. So you can have a name like the pure, wise seer of the truth, in Pali or Sanskrit, and then, be totally obsessed with seeing how much money you can get and how much, power you can get in the society. Or like our own Pali names, the monastic Sangha. Most of us, when we ordain, we get a very kind of beautiful name, like Sumedho, my name. And when I found out the meaning of it, one who has good wisdom, I thought, I didn't see myself as being that kind of a person. I remember when I ordained Ajahn Upekkha, equanimity. I remember she's the last person to feel that she has this property of upekkha, or equanimity. And I said, it's not about trying to describe your personality, isn't it? You give these names not for attachment or identity. They're not for developing the ego, but for reminding. It's like Puto, Upekkha, or Sumedho, or this reminding. It's to be used for remind, like Samanera Akaliko ordained him and gave him the name Akaliko, timeless. Now, whoever thinks of oneself as timeless, on the ego level, it makes no sense, does it? I'm the timeless one, it sounds silly. But Akalika Dhamma, isn't that? Akalika, we chant it. But it's also a reminder of here and now, the timeless reality of now, not as some kind of description of one's personal abilities or whatever. It's not to be something intimidating us, and if we feel unworthy of our beautiful names, that's still the ego, isn't it? I'm not really good wisdom. I'm still have a lot of ignorance and stupidity. That is the ego operating. Or the ego can take the opposite. I'm really very wise and my wisdom is better than yours. And I can become, Sumedho from the ego level. That's a misuse of it, but it's using these words not for identity or position, but for a reminder, like Bhutto. So Bhutto is not some kind of ego identity or an intimidating thing to make you feel guilty because you're heedless most of the time. It's not to go around saying you should be aware and awake, and look at you. You've just you've made these terrible mistakes and done these heedless actions, and here you just took refuge in the Buddha, and you said that, and you did this, and that's intimidating, isn't it? Way of kind of intimidating you, or a skillful use of Bhutang Saranam Gacchami is not attachment, but reflection. It's remembering, reminding. Sati sampajanya, these words, sati, to remember the present moment, wake up here and now, because the world that we tend to be conditioned with is deluding us. So walking into this temple, seeing the temple as a place to remind yourself, awaken here and now, not to come in and feel, if you come in here with some kind of feeling of some problems and worries and views and fears and that, and sit down and start to meditate, and then you're getting caught up in your own fears and desires and emotional habits. But then when you look at the Buddha Rupa, what do? That's Bhutto, isn't it? This is like saying Bhutto, it's blessing you, saying wake up, it's not saying you better wake up or I'm going to punish you, but it's a reminder. It's an invitation, it's encouragement, it's loving kindness, it's compassion. So that's why, see this space here, it's up to you how you want to use this temple. But for me, this is how I've developed it. So that coming into this temple is always, we don't eat here, or it's not a place for all kinds of worldly activities. So its main purpose is this simple reminder, Bhutto, Dhammo Sangho. Awaken to the real, to reality. And then Sangho then is no longer, some kind of identity with being a monk or a nun or but it's one who practices supatipanno, ujjapatipanno. These kind of words, that human being here and now practicing in the right way, awaken here and now, is supatipanno. It's not about how good my practice is, or how mindful I am, or how I've developed good samadhi, or my achievements in monastic life, or my failures in it. It's not about me being a sotapanna or an arhat or anything like that. It's about supatipanno, Sangho, Bhutto Dhammo Sangho. Ujjapatipanno, direct, it's here and now. It's not about practicing now for the future. It's not about getting your samadhi and attaining the first jhana in order to do vipassana or anything like that. It's not about, getting something you don't have or getting rid of your defilements. It's about trusting in Bhutto, awareness, because it's Buddha that knows Dhamma. It's the awakened consciousness that knows reality, knows the Dhamma. And then within the limitation of the human birth, human form, Sangho isn't about personality or an individual as a person. It's about a human being awakened now, practicing or cultivating this awakeness. Now cultivating then is, the word is bhavana. In Thai they use this word for meditation, bhavana. But it's also the insight into the Fourth Noble Truth. cultivating, developing awareness, samaditi samasangapo. So bhavana begins with sotapanna, seeing the path, here and awakened here and now. The path is here and now. Stream entry, it's called. So it's not about becoming a stream enterer or a sotapanna, it's about being one. Trusting yourself to be there, to recognize the awakened consciousness now is this. It's not what you think or what you want or what you imagine or assume or what somebody else tells you. It's here and now. Now what does that do to your mind at this moment? It throws the ego, the ego doesn't quite know how to relate to it. Because we do have so many opinions about practice, about how you've got to get this in order to get that, get rid of these, get rid of desire, and so that Buddhist meditation can sound very complicated and difficult. But it is ultimate simplicity, it's unicity, it's oneness, it's reality. That we are, as human individuals, capable of recognizing the real. This is the blessing of a human birth. Sometimes it seems, I remember I used to think of being born as a human being as a kind of curse. Before I started meditating, I thought, I was brought up as a Christian, and so I had all these ideals about love and God loves me and all that. And then as I grew older, and I could see how unlovable I was, how easily offended I could be, how sensitive I was, how delicate my feelings are, and fear of being hurt and things like that. And even though my life hasn't been one of being abused and that in any big way, but it's just the ego structure, the ignorance and the identity with the body and the emotional habits and tendencies and ideals, feeling cursed by being in this sensitive form. Having to live in this sensitive form for a lifetime seemed to be like a curse. Now then, in Thailand, for example, Luang Chah and the Thai teachers were always saying it's one of the great, human birth is a great blessing. So I had to get out of my cynical mode and consider, is this just Thai culture? Is it just being kind of naive or optimistic or whatever way a Western critical mind wants to see it? Or what did they mean when Luang Por Chah said it's a great blessing to have a human birth? Because it can be a curse, as most of you know. And then it's this simplicity of this awakened reality, awakened here and now, Buddho Dhammo Sangho. This is what the Buddha was pointing at. The gate to the deathless is open. The teaching he gave, the Four Noble Truths and all that's very skillful way of investigating, to break through, to see through the conditioning that you've acquired in your life so far. So you begin to see your conditioning, your ego, your cultural conditioning, your thinking, your conditioned thinking process. You have a way of beginning to look at it, not through the critical mind and analyzing it as good, bad, right, or wrong, but seeing it in terms of what it is, its condition, arising, ceasing. So this pure subjectivity, pure consciousness, aware of the conditions, the body's like this, the emotions, happiness, unhappiness, ecstasy, depression, whatever is like this, that which is aware, as you begin to remind yourself, sati sampajanya, putto, and then you can see the changiness of how whatever you think you are, or conceive yourself, or assume in your emotional feelings of the moment, or views, opinions, no matter how high or low they might be, awareness of them in terms of what they really are at this moment. Because whatever you're thinking or feeling at this time, it is a sankhara, isn't it? It's a condition dependent on other conditions. Whatever thoughts, views, perceptions you have about yourself or the world around you, it's not a judgment of being wrong or that you shouldn't have them, but it is a condition. You're awakening to the real. Conditioned phenomena is impermanent and not self. No matter what it is, whether it's refined or coarse or right or wrong, good or bad, angelic or demonic, in all gradations between those two extremes, conditioned phenomena is impermanent. Sape sankarani Chah. So over the years of monastic life, this has been my, to keep reminding myself, because it's so easy to forget it. Living here in England for over 30 years, you're involved in so many intimidating situations. Having to be a Buddhist monk in a non-Buddhist country, and having to, be upachaya and establish monasteries and ordain monks and nuns and relate to the society. In that it could be an ego trip, it could be just done because of maybe a kind of idealism of wanting to bring the Dhamma to Europe and save the Europeans from their ignorance. Or the reason why I've survived this long is because of this practice, the bhavana. So that the emphasis is on the bhavana, on cultivating awareness, not on achieving, being a successful Buddhist monk, bringing the Dhamma to Europe, ordaining a lot of monks and nuns and people and converting everybody to Theravada Buddhism. There's never been my, those kind of intimidating perceptions have certainly been impressed on my consciousness. But then seeing even that, even though a lot of that's very good, very altruistic, wanting to help others and free others from their ignorance and suffering is very compassionate and very altruistic. But it's not bhavana till you see that even the highest altruistic concepts are conditions. And that's not diminishing them, it's putting them in that perspective of non-attachment. So then the relationship to the society is from metta, from loving kindness and karuna, compassion, mudita, joy, upekkha. These come through mindfulness, not through me trying to develop the Brahma Viharas. Me, Ajahn Sumedho, trying to be very compassionate and equanimous. It's not about me becoming, having a lot of metta or compassion, because that can be can be still operating from Sakya Ditti, Silabbata Paramasa Vicikicca. But it's not about me having the idea I don't need to practice metta either. It's not about taking sides or having views about it. It's in trusting in this awareness, getting to be so familiar, so attuned to awakened consciousness, so committed to it that you find there's no other possibility. It gives you a stability, an unshakability that you can never have through trying to, operate only from ideals or good intentions. So this is where for you to contemplate, and it's really, this is an invitation, an encouragement to trust, to awaken, recognize, trust in this simple attentiveness in the present, and be patient with your ego and bodies and emotional habits, rather than trying to control them and suppress them or judge them or believe them, or because as soon as you start judging yourself, you're back into the ego again. Some of the worst critics are oneself. When I look at my life, the worst critic of me has been me, not any of you or anyone else that I remember in my life. The worst critic of me has been me. So that is, and being critical of oneself seems in some ways on a worldly level to be the right thing. None of us like people who think of themselves as there's nothing wrong with me, I'm so wonderful, and I'm God's gift to the world. I have no faults. I'm so compassionate and loving and good. And if I talk like that, what would you think? That tendency is to think, to see myself. My tendency is on a conditioned level of ego is to always see what's wrong, to see the bit that isn't very nice, to be very embarrassed or uncomfortable or by the things that aren't very nice about me, that I don't like about my personality or my body or my emotional tendencies. That's a stronger one than saying I'm extremely beautiful, wonderful gift to society. I don't have any of that. I'm not tends towards that kind of megalomania. But the other is even more insidious, isn't it? Because it's a relentless kind of criticism, a habitual criticism towards, always focusing on the bit you don't like, on the little bits that aren't very nice about yourself or your personality. But awakened awareness has no personal quality. not about being right or wrong, good or bad, beautiful or ugly, great or small. It's like tuning in to the universal reality, universal consciousness. The true nature of things. It's not something I can claim as some kind of personal achievement for having been a monk for so many years and having practiced meditation for so many years. It's nothing to do with that. The recognition, simple recognition, and the cultivation of that. Once it's recognized, noticed, and appreciated, then you cultivate that. That's the Fourth Noble Truth, the Eightfold Path. You cultivate awareness. Which means like reminding yourself, because you forget, so you get caught up in intimidating worldly conditions, praise and blame, and responsibilities, duties, and all this kind of thing arise in our lives. Our vipaka karma ripens, and we get all kinds of emotional habits that appear and disappear in the consciousness. So cultivating is this patient, kind reminding oneself, trusting in just this simple reality of awakened attention in the present. And no matter how many times you fail at it or fall apart, it doesn't matter. It's not about being successful at being mindful, because then it becomes the ego again. It's just recognizing, awakening. So even if you get caught up in all kinds of worldly habits and so forth, once you've recognized this, this is really, then you know, even if you go on for years in a state of delusion, there'll be a point where you suddenly awaken. You remember mindfulness here and now. Then instead of berating yourself for having been deluded, this is something to rejoice in. This is the joy, the blessing of being a human being, awaken here and now, rather than somebody who had an insight years ago and forgot it and did a lot of stupid things, and then suddenly you remember, and then you feel you get caught up in guilt and remorse and self-disparagement. Don't do that. That's the simplicity of appreciation for this one, maybe flashing second of attention. So it's humbling, because it's not like I'm really, highly attained person with wonderful samadhi and marvelous gifts of psychic powers, and can do all kinds of, read your minds and know everything about everything. It's very humbling, because it doesn't seem like it's worth anything. It's not, you can't boast about it. It doesn't sound like it's worth anything to the world. So I offer this for your reflection this evening. Dhamma